Welcome to our webinar on year-end giving, Finishing Strong in 2020. My name is Joe Park, and I'm CEO of Horizon Stewardship. Today's webinar focuses on ideas which are included in the Horizon's year-end giving guide. You may download this guide at giving365.com. I'm pleased to introduce my colleagues, Christine Miller and Dr. Tom Malzoni. Christine and Tom are Senior Vice Presidents with Horizon's International Coaching Federation trained coaches, sought after speakers, and highly trained at guiding churches in the development of cultures of generosity and helping faith-based nonprofits fund their missions.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for that introduction and welcome everyone. I'm so grateful to see so many people on this call, and I know there's several that I know personally. So welcome to you all, and we will go ahead and get started. So today's webinar, I just want to make sure that you know you are all welcome here, whether you are one of those really really great churches that is in a strong financial position. Maybe you've had a PPP loan forgiven or just had really great generosity from your members. You are welcome and congratulations. You may be a church who's struggling a bit financially and is concerned about these last few weeks of the year. You are welcome too. We have some great strategies and ideas for all of you to end the year in a strong financial position. Tom and I are going to share with you the 6 strategies, but I wanted to give you a caution about messaging. I hope that you're going to deploy 1 or 2 or even more of these strategies in your year-end giving. However, the most brilliant strategy will fail if the messaging is off. So when considering your messaging, just be mindful that people want to support a winning cause. People don't want to hear that you might be in financial jeopardy, that there is a financial gap, or that you're somehow circling the financial drain. People want to know that their resources are going to go to support mission and ministry and make a strong impact in your community and beyond. So be sure that your message has that tone. We need to remind people that God is still God, that ministry is still happening, and the ministry that you're doing is very worthy of their support. So let's get started. 6 strategies. It may surprise you to know that a third of all giving to nonprofits happens in December. That's huge. It's a really, really important month. And 12% happens in the last 3 days of the year. So knowing how to end the year strong really requires an understanding of great year-end giving strategies. So Tom and I are going to go over these 6 year-end strategies, and then at the end, we're going to provide to you the URL that you can go to download the year-end giving guide that will include these concepts and a bit more detail to help you execute your strategies. So the first one, allow your donors to decide. So often we tell ourselves that we know what our donors are thinking, and we actually make up their minds for them on occasion. We convince ourselves to not ask for support or to maybe expect minimal results. We convince ourselves that our donors are tapped out, or they're tired of giving, they're tired of being asked, or maybe that they don't have anything more to give. I've had conversations, as I'm sure Tom has too, over these last several months, where pastors show concern, for appropriately so, for those people affected by COVID and job loss and those kinds of things. While it is always appropriate to be sensitive to where people are in their lives, sometimes we make decisions for donors that just are not true. For example, recent research by Dickerson Baker revealed that people want to give. They want to give more, and they want to give more in the 4th quarter of the year. 85% of donors intend to maintain or increase their giving by the end of this year. 85%. And 25% say they plan to give more because they have more. So without an opportunity to share those resources with you, they're likely to share those resources with others. Donors are willing and able to give more this year and give to you right now. The second thing that happens a lot is we think about asking, and somehow we believe that we're asking people to do something that maybe is painful or harmful or somehow detrimental to them. We tell ourselves people are suffering, and so we shouldn't ask them, or giving would be too painful, so we shouldn't ask them. And in most cases, this is simply not true. And more importantly, it really misses a critical point about the activity of raising resources and supporting ministry. Henry Nouwen says it well in his book, Spirituality of Fundraising. He says, when we seek to raise funds, we are declaring we have a vision that is amazing and exciting, and we are inviting you to invest yourself in this work to which God has called us. Nouwen also says, when those with money and those who need money share a mission, we see a central sign of new life in the spirit of Christ. So when we fail to ask, we fail to experience this new life in Christ and fail to offer our donors the opportunity to experience the joy of generosity. So be bold and be courageous and allow your donors to decide for themselves about their giving. Second strategy, number 2, and for most of you, this is something that you're doing already, is telling your ministry stories. But it is as true now as it has ever been that people want to invest in something that is bigger than themselves. And donors want to know that their resources are making a difference in the world. So now is a great time to reflect back on 2020 and let your supporters know how you've been making God's kingdom a reality in your community. Tom, I'm sure you've heard plenty of these stories too about the hoops that our churches have jumped through in order to make ministry possible. I've talked to a church where they had a feeding ministry where they had people come to their church every week and they fed them a meal. They had to figure out how to do that contactless. One of the churches I'm working with handed out Advent bags. They've done drive-through communions, drive-through prayers, all kinds of activities like that. Tom, I'm sure you've heard some of those stories as well.
Absolutely, Christine. One of the joys I have and you have is always working with some wonderful clients who are doing great things. And I currently have a client that is helping a family that was really torn apart. Their house was torn apart by the hurricanes in Louisiana, and so they've raised $10,000 to help with that particular project, and so they're able to not just share the story of rebuilding a house, but they've got some pictures, even an iPhone video of that family saying thank you to the congregation. And it's really critical that we move from the 30,000 foot level down to literally landing the plane on what is the impact we're making in a specific or some specific lives.
That's a great example, and it's a perfect example of the one life being affected. So often we talk about the corporate impact. So we say, you know, we've helped 35 families, or we've helped 25 kids, or something of that sort. And certainly those numbers and those facts and figures are important. But when you drill it down to just the life of one person, how that one person's life is different because your church stepped in and did something impactful, those are the most compelling stories and the ones that resonate most with your donors. So be sure that you're connecting ministry and money. Make sure that you enable people to see that the money that they're providing to your church is going to work immediately to do incredible ministry in their communities. Utilize all the media that you have. Now we're all becoming, you know, wonderful media experts now since COVID. And so you, I'm sure, are becoming really wonderful experts at creating videos and using, you know, screens and Zoom and all kinds of ways that you can share really great stories. So make sure that you're utilizing all the tools at your disposal to share those stories with your donors. Many of you are likely already doing offering talks. Offering talks, that moment that happens just before the offertory time, where you really help those donors that are donating to your church connect their contributions to your church's ability to do ministry. And taking the donor's perspective, we're all donors ourselves. And so think about what you would like to hear from an organization that you support. What would be meaningful in terms of relationship building with an organization that you support, whether it's your church or other nonprofit? What do you want to know about what they're doing with the resources that you have shared with them? So put yourself in the donor's shoes and think about what you as a donor might like to understand. All right, Tom's going to share now with us a bit about how to promote tax-advantaged giving. Tom?
Yeah, thank you, Christine. And we all understand that that people give because they want to. Taxes are something that, quite frankly, for us is just an advantage. It's not necessarily a motivation to give, but it's certainly something we need to be aware of. And for some people, this year specifically, the tax law may help them give more. And so, just in your messaging, is you'll want to understand the joy of the CARES Act, shall we say, and all the great things that it has provided for givers. Most of you probably are aware that the required minimum distribution for those good persons who have reached that mature age of 70 and a half, that this year they do not have to take their required minimum distribution. On the other hand, they are still able to give to a charity, so meaning the church specifically, but they can give to their charity directly from their IRAs or 401ks that are qualified, under this law. They can still give up to $100,000 directly from their charitable or directly from their IRA to the church. Just be aware, however, that they do not have to take that required minimum distribution this year. What does that mean for you? It helps you. It helps them know that you understand something about the tax law. Also, this year and this year only. Again, that's the same thing with the required minimum distribution. It's this year only. Is that if you're a couple or a person who you take the standardized deduction and you don't do any itemization, this year you are able to deduct for an individual an additional $300, or for a couple $600 on top of the shall we say on top of the itemization aspect, meaning that if you're not itemizing, some people say, well, I don't have to worry about sharing this, on my income taxes. Well, this is an advantage for them that they're going to be able to deduct 300 or 600 as a couple. Also, something that's really big, and this will affect a certain segment of people, is that they're able this year to deduct 100% of their adjusted gross income if they use that as a charitable contribution. Meaning that if a person makes $100,000 a year, previous years they have been able to deduct about 50% of that. So if they gave $60,000 and they made $100,000, only $50,000 would be deductible on their income tax. Now, certainly they could carry that over if they so desired. This year, they're able to deduct, if they make 100 and they give 100, they're able to deduct 100% of that, which for some, if they're bundling their giving, or if we're in a capital campaign and they're giving significant dollars, this may very well be an opportunity for them to do that in this tax year because it's a great tax advantage. I'm going to caveat everything I'm saying in that we are simply trying to educate you about these laws. You always want to have your givers be able to talk with their own tax advisors, because every one of our situations will flow a little bit differently. Um, Help your people understand that there are numerous ways to give that are certainly within the realm of tax-wise giving. Uh, Numerous people give from securities. I have found that approximately 70% of the people of the churches in which I have the joy of working, about 70% of them do not know, one, that they can give securities, or number two, they don't know how to give securities. And about 30% of my churches have never received any securities, so they don't know how to even receive them. And so it is really a phenomenal way in which to give, because I put it simply like this. If I bought a stock at $10 and it went up to $20, if I cash that stock in, I would have a capital gains of $10. I would be paying taxes on that capital gain of $10. If, on the other hand, I had purchased a stock at $10 and it had gone up to $20, I'm going to caveat a little bit. I have to keep that for a year. But if I have followed the procedures, if I give that stock directly to my church, then I pay no capital gains tax. I receive a $20 tax deduction. My church cashes it in and receives the $20, maybe minus a fee from their brokerage, and they pay no taxes. I humorously like to say then that Uncle Sam really becomes one of the largest donors, to our churches if we do this appropriately. There's some other funds out there that donors use. I'm going to say this. This is the fund I use. It's called a donor advised funds. If we want to put it in a more simple language, I call it a charitable checking account. But it allows the person to give to one source, so that would be their donor advised fund. They can make their charitable contributions from there or to there. That group that they're giving to keeps all the records, and then they can distribute accordingly. I give to my church through my donor advised fund, and so it very well may be something that many of your people may want to take advantage of. Again, we're always happy to help you at least understand that in greater detail. Once again, marketing or your messaging is critical. You got to publicize these options. You have to let people know that these are out there. You have to let them know that they may be eligible relative to certain grants. And tax strategies, in my opinion, even though as a person of faith, I don't necessarily give because of taxes, tax strategies do create a win-win situation for me and for my church. So it creates an opportunity for your people to have a win-win. They will be able to give more, you will be able to receive more, and everyone will be happy because they had a tax deduction.
One thing I just want to mention here too is if you have a denominational foundation that you can get resources from, this is a great time of year for you to be in connection with them and to ask for their help and support in helping your donors to navigate through some of these tax advantage giving tools. So thanks, Tom. So here's strategy number 4, participating in Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is coming up soon, December 1. So you still have a little bit of time to prepare for this. So just a couple of tidbits to encourage you to think about this as your year-end giving strategy. First of all, 20% of nonprofit revenue is given on Giving Tuesday. So that's huge, and December 31st. So those 2 dates are really, really big end of year giving opportunities. And there's some research even that says 50% of annual contributions are received in the last quarter of the year. So if you're not yet convinced, which you probably are, or else you wouldn't be on this webinar, but if you're not yet convinced that year-end giving is important, hopefully these statistics will encourage you. the great thing about Giving Tuesday and the church getting on board with it is that Giving Tuesday does most of the heavy lifting for you. You have to do very, very little in order to create a strategy around this. If you go to in the year-end giving guide, we're going to provide to you a link, or you can just Google it yourself to find Giving Tuesday. You can sign up online and basically get access to all kinds of great strategies. You can get the visuals, the images, all the kind of stuff to support your campaign and your appeal. So most of the work is already done for you. Your big job in this is just to make sure that when Giving Tuesday, your donors see Giving Tuesday someplace, that they're thinking about you and thinking about giving to your mission and ministry. So first thing is, create a financial goal and build some excitement around it. It's not so important about how big or how small your financial goal is, but just that it's something that's a bit of a stretch goal, and that people can get excited and rally behind it. Take a look at your website and make sure that you're putting your financial goals and tracking progress, or you might even create a separate landing page specifically for Giving Tuesday and the publicity around it. If you are having a great year with your annual giving, and you really are not in need of additional resources for your annual ministry budget, you might think about identifying a particular project or an outreach or ministry that you want to have the Giving Tuesday proceeds go to, and make sure that you let people know that everything that comes in for Giving Tuesday is going to go to this particular outreach, so that people know what they're giving to and can get really excited about that. Giving Tuesday is a big social media event, so make sure that you're using the hashtag Giving Tuesday on all your publications, all your announcements throughout all of your social media, so people recognize that your church is participating in Giving Tuesday. So a couple things before you get started in publicizing Giving Tuesday. Take a look at your website. And most of you are now veterans of the online giving circle, and you know how to do that really well. But I'm really surprised and amazed, even still, when I go to make a gift on a church's website, sometimes how difficult it is to make that contribution. So make sure it's very easy, that people can find your giving page very easily, that they can see a drop down from your menu that says Giving Tuesday, so that they know that they're giving directly as a result of the Giving Tuesday appeal. This will help you measure your effectiveness, and also to let you be able to track your progress and let people know what they have contributed and how much. Another thing about just websites, make sure that you follow your website all the way through. Go ahead and make an online gift to your own church and test it. You'll be surprised at what you might find out. Sometimes we set the default parameters and we leave them in place. And so I've got a church where when I got the online confirmation of the gift that I made, the word transaction was literally 6 times in the email. And they kept talking about they want giving to be transformational, not transactional. And yet I make a gift and 6 times I'm told it's a transaction. So things like that can be easily fixed through your online giving provider. So take a look and make sure you follow it all the way through. Make sure your processes are working properly. Last but not least, celebrate everything you receive and remember to express gratitude. Make sure that you have a plan in place. How are you going to express gratitude to your Giving Tuesday donors? You might find that some of these donors have not contributed to your church before, that these are first-time donors because they've seen what you're doing on social media and they've decided that they want to contribute to your ministry. So put together a plan so that you make sure that everyone that makes a gift on Giving Tuesday receives a note of gratitude from you. The fifth category is encouraging estate gifts. And we call this a variety of things: estate gifts, planned gifts. It's really, we're talking about the same type of giving. We're talking about that pocket of giving that the church receives upon the death of the donor. So that's the kind of giving that we're talking about here. Most churches that we speak to, and Tom, I'll bet this is the same for you. We talk about estate gifts and that they want to put together a planned giving program, but somehow it always falls back in the priority list. And so it rarely rises to the top of priorities. But today, people tend to focus on year-end giving when there's a huge change in their lives or there's some sort of crisis. Well, funny thing, pandemic, as it turns out, is a crisis. And so people are looking at end of life decisions and making some choices about that. So the conversation around it is ramping up. So now is a great time to have that conversation with your donors and create a plan. So here's a couple of ideas to consider. First of all, beneficiary designation. This is one of the most easiest and straightforward ways that you can invite somebody to make a contribution upon their death to the church. What we mean by beneficiary designation is any type of financial account that you might have, whether it's an insurance policy or a bank account or a retirement account. All of these financial accounts have a beneficiary. And so the donor can actually add the church as one of or the exclusive beneficiary to that account upon the account owner's death. So that's what we're talking about. Typically, it doesn't require an attorney to assist with that. In some cases, it can even be done online. So beneficiary designation is one of the simplest ways that a donor can make a gift to the church. It's also really family friendly because any type of financial account can have more than one beneficiary designated. So you can take into account grandchildren and family and also include the church as one of those beneficiaries. Tom was talking a minute ago about donor advised funds, and he and I both share a passion for that kind of giving. The great thing about donor advised fund is that the funds, once they're put into the donor advised funds, can only be used for charitable purposes. So there must be a beneficiary to that donor advised fund. Now it can be passed down to generations, but not for income purposes, only for charitable giving purposes. So for some people who either don't have children or maybe whose children don't share their philanthropic passions, they will have a beneficiary on their donor advised fund where the entire fund upon their death goes to a particular charitable organization or several charitable organizations. So that's a great opportunity for beneficiary designation as well. Just an idea that we've been kicking around that may have some merit, but we've not tried it, so we can't necessarily say how well it works. Maybe Tom, you have experience with this, but what about doing a Christmas promotion where, as a Christmas gift to the church, you let the church know that you've designated the church as a beneficiary on one or more account. A great idea. All they have to do is let you know, hey, I've put you on my bank account at PNC, and when I die, if there's any money in there, it's yours. So it could be a really fun way for donors to make a gift to the church and to promote beneficiary designations.
Yes, Christine, I'll just say I have done that with my checking account. Is that unfortunately, if something should happen, obviously one day that will happen, but our checking account would be automatically sent to our church. So
yeah, it's a great and relatively easy way to invite someone to make their first perhaps estate gift. Legacy societies, if you have not already formed a legacy society, this is a great time to do that. I encourage you to get again with your denominational foundation, if there is one available, or call Horizons, we can help you set this up. But so many churches that I work with don't even know if they have been named in anyone's estate or as a beneficiary of some in a will, estate plan, or some financial account. So one of the things you might do in promoting your legacy society is send out a form to your congregation and invite people to let you know if they have, in fact, made you a beneficiary in one of their planned giving tools. That will give you some beginning conversation points. You might also ask them to give you some information about that planned gift vehicle, where it's located, maybe who's the executor of your estate, and even the amount of the bequest. Some cases, the donor won't even know what the amount is of the bequest because it might be a percentage or something like that. But always give the donor an opportunity to share that information, because sometimes they do want to let you know. The wonderful thing about Legacy Society is it continues to build the relationship between you and a donor that's left you resources upon his or her death. Um, Relationship is so vitally important. Did you know that those people who make a planned gift, their annual donations to that organization increase on average 75%? So getting someone to become a planned giving donor not only assures you that you have that gift when they die, but it also invites them into a deeper relationship with the church. And they will likely be some of the largest donors over their lifetime that you have as a church. So I encourage you to get started on that if you or promote it if you have one already. A lot of people want to know, who are the best prospects? Who should I be talking to about these charitable giving opportunities? There's a few more identified in the year-end giving guide. You'll see some of those kind of characteristics of typical charitable bequest prospects. But one of the key characteristics is the length of time that they have been giving to your organization. So in the church, we have the benefit of having donors who have been giving to us for 10 and 20 and 30 years or more. These people are prime prospects for making a charitable gift to your church. So those would be the people that you'd want to identify first. Also, just a reminder here that wealth is not a prerequisite for making a planned gift. Anyone who has a financial account, an IRA, an insurance policy, anyone can make a planned gift to your church. Wealth is not a critical element in that decision. Couple of here's a key phrase. Now, there's a Dr. Russell James, who's a tenured professor at Texas Tech, has done a ton of research on planned giving and what motivates people to make those kinds of contributions. And he did a research project and tested a bunch of different phrases and to see which ones resonated the most with their planned giving prospects. And he found that this phrase, assuring your values live on past your own lifetime, received the highest resonance with planned giving prospects. So thank you, Dr. James. It's a great tool to know that kind of messaging really appeals to those planned giving prospects. Ask your donors to remember the church just like they would a child or a grandchild. In many cases, beneficiaries can be multiple in any particular designation or any kind of a planned gift option. So the church receives perhaps 10% of the gift, the grandchildren receive the rest, something like that. And so it doesn't mean at the exclusion of family members, but it can be in addition to family members. Again, think about sending a request. If you don't know who some of your legacy donors are, you might send a request and ask people to let you know if they have taken care of the church in their will or estate plan or in some other beneficiary designation form. So you know who those people are and can continue to cultivate those gifts. Be mindful that many planned giving tools are also revocable until the donor dies. So to ensure that that donor continues to want to give that gift to the church, you'll need to know who those donors are and continue to build those relationships. One last point about estate gifts is, so often when we're talking about testimonies from planned giving donors, we use the story of a donor who has died and left $1 million to the church. And we share that story and thank that donor and invite the family to comment and all those kinds of things. And that's typically how we celebrate those planned giving donors. Well, again, Russell James has determined that that does not appeal to most donors. And the reason he gives is because people don't want to be the donor that you're speaking about, because that donor's dead. The donor really wants to be the living legacy donor, someone who is yet to see that donation actually through to fruition. So invite one of those people who has made a legacy policy designation to your church. Help them to share their story about why that legacy gift is meaningful. By sharing that story, the donor will share, why she believes in your organization and its ability to impact the world. She'll serve as a role model for others to follow suit and inspire other donors by example. It also suggests that if she can make an estate gift, well, then maybe so can I. So it becomes more the normative behavior. And it also demonstrates a tremendous amount of trust in your church. The legacy gift, as we said, is one of the only gift that a donor makes that they never see what happens and how you use that gift to impact the world. So they're sharing a good deal of trust in the church to make sure that gift is well used. All right, we're in the home stretch. The sixth strategy, send an email appeal on December 28th, or maybe again between 2 and 4 on December 31st.
Or both.
Yeah, or both. Yeah, so December 28th, there's nothing magical about that. But this year it happens to be on a Monday. It also follows Christmas after a couple of days. And it also gives people a couple of days time in order to make that contribution happen. So some churches have talked to me about matching gifts. Some donors come along and they want to do a matching gift, but they're not quite sure how to utilize that. An end of the year appeal is a great way to utilize a matching gift. Establish a goal, have a matching gift, and then push strong to the finish. There's some research and there's more again of this information in the year-end giving guide, but research says that donors don't want to be asked for their gift before you've made the case for it. So when you're sending your email appeal on December 28th, make sure that your Give Now button, a link to it is in there, but don't have it lead with that. Have it end with that so that you've made your case for why your ministry is making a difference and how your gift, how their gift to your organization can make an impact. And then make sure to provide an easy way for them to connect to your online giving. Again, develop a plan for thanking your year-end donors. Expressing gratitude is still one of the strongest strategies that you can have to increase and encourage more donations to your church. So make sure you have a plan in place before your year-end appeal so that you have thank you notes out to your donors in a prompt manner. So here is the information that we've been referring to today, the year-end giving guide. If you go to this website today, you will be able to download the year-end giving guide. It has all of these strategies and some additional information about how you can end the year strong and continue giving through 2021 to your important ministries. So I'm sure we have a good number of questions that have popped up. I'm grateful that I can't see them all right now. I know Joe is taking a look. Please jot down this website address. We're going to stop screen share in just a second. I also want to make mention that this URL, as well as the recording of this webinar, will be emailed to you automatically. So you don't have to request it. It's going to automatically be emailed to you within the next day or two. So know that it's coming to you, as well as this year-end giving guide. Also, if you know people that were not able to be on this webinar or you think this would be of benefit to, we encourage you to share this. We put this out there in order to help our churches to end the year strong. And if you have other churches that you think could benefit from this, we would be grateful for you to share it with them and encourage you to do so. Just a couple of quick points too. We're on social media all over the place. So if you're a social media person and you want to get the latest from Horizons, find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and there's our homepage as well. Giving 365, which Joe talked about earlier, is our on-demand resource library. It's completely 100% free, and there's a lot of great tools in there, tools that you can use with your finance team, with your stewardship team, and with others. So please feel free to avail yourself of everything that's in there, as well as this webinar, and the year-end giving guide will be located there as well.